Lisa and Robyn are two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking, what's next? They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robyn on the mic.
Welcome to Lisa and Robyn on the mic. You are listening on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on Facebook, YouTube, WSMN.live, as well as after the show on Spotify. Welcome to the first show of 2025. We are excited.
Woohoo! Happy New Year. Happy New Year and happy Thursday.
Happy New Year is right. Are you ready?
Yes. So guess what guess what I'm starting out doing tonight for the new year?
Making something fantastic?
Probably not.
Oh. Excellent. What are you doing? Are you dancing? Is there a dance party?
Chris signed us up for a bowling league.
I have always wanted to be on a bowling league.
So
tell me all about it.
So Logan and his dad did it last year. They might have done it 2 years now in a row, but
big balls or little balls?
I think it's big balls.
Tell me all about it.
And it doesn't have bumpers. So this is like they're professional. Like they spend the first 3 weeks getting your handicap.
Okay.
So I think you really want to do poorly. So because if you do really great right out of the gate, then your score comes down like higher than that. Like if you don't live up to that standard. I don't know. So I was looking online for bowling shoes because I'm like,
I can't wear other people's bowling shoes for 16 weeks. How many weeks is the
It's
league?
16 weeks.
I want to do it.
Well, sign up. I think it's over in Merrimack. I can have Chris send you the link.
Yeah, send me information. What time does it start?
6:30.
Okay.
So I was like, well, we're doing that.
Well, I wouldn't be able to do today, but I'm totally down. I love bowling, and every year I've thought, well, that's something to do in the winter.
It is. So it should be fun. Something to do it together as a family. Well, I mean,
something to get you out of the house at a specific time.
Yes.
Oh my God, this is going to be so much fun.
Yeah. So we.
Are you not a good bowler? Is that why you're trying to do the handicap? Because I feel like you'd be fantastic at bowling.
I think I'm okay at bowling. I'm definitely better at Wii Sports bowling.
Mm-hmm. But you can take some of those concepts.
Yes.
It's wrist control.
Yes. And I don't know if they have the right size ball for my hand. You know, I think I want a 6-pound ball. Or
you might have to buy your own ball.
I might have to, but I'm like, what I'm finding out is there are no cute shoes for bowling.
No, there are only, unless you glitter spray glitter on them.
Well, I don't actually even mind. Like, I would rather have like the traditional looking ones because they're kind of funky. Mm-hmm. But they have like they're all canvas mesh, like a sneaker. But I like the ones that are like old wingtips.
Yeah, like leather.
Yes, I'll actually have a picture up. I showed a.
This is so much fun, actually.
And I was like, we can get matching ones. So now we have to come up with a team name. So it's would be for the three of us.
So it's you, Logan.
So I like those, but they don't have them in women's if we're going to get matching. So they have those.
I like those too.
So I'm like, they're okay. I love those.
Yeah, they look like wingtip.
Yes.
Wingtip
yeah.
shoes. Like
so
normal, like 1950s, leathery, flat. You would wear them with a poodle skirt.
Yes.
That's what she's just showing me a picture of.
Yeah, it's definitely classic wingtips. Navy blue on the toe and on the heel. It's tan, and then the white where the laces are. So cute.
That's going to be so much fun.
And even the brown ones, wingtips. Like,
are you doing food after, food there? Who's on the team? Are you against people you already know?
No, we don't know anybody.
So it's you.
Except for Logan and his dad. And his dad is going to be away tonight. So they're going to be down their team captain.
Okay.
So far, I think it's just the three of us. I have no idea. I've not researched it. We're going to show up and like, okay.
I might crash that.
I'm a member of the team.
Yeah.
Come check it out.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be a
6:30 at Nashua
because
Merrimack.
This like I said, it's something that since I've moved back, I've wanted to do a number of times because I love bowling.
Yes,
and we take our nephews bowling, And we've even had a bowling party for one of my nephews as his birthday party where the whole, like, we take up 5 lanes and we're just doing the bowling.
Nice.
And I always have so much fun. And it is a throwback to, I used to, after 6th and 7th grade, used to go with my girlfriends to Davis Square. We used to go to McDonald's. We used to bowl a couple of strings because back then you could bowl 2 or 3 strings for like $2.
Yeah. Wow. That's
right.
cool.
And so your parents would give you $5 or $10. You would get McDonald's, which would be a couple of bucks. You would bowl, and that would
Isn't
take
that amazing?
you
$5 could get you a meal and a bowling.
Yeah. And so we used to, and my friend Kimberly, oh my goodness, my friend Kimberly, I haven't thought about her in so long, but she is like morphed with my bowling memories because we always used to go bowling. And Becky, we're the other friend, and we used to go bowling like every day. And it was something my father used to, and this was not child abuse back in the day. My father used to take me to pool halls.
Oh, yeah.
And pool halls were always associated with bowling.
Yeah.
And so he used to rack up and bet, and he was a fantastic pool player. And
Wow.
I was a terrible pool player, but I was a great bowler. And so I remember one time, you know, I'm playing pool with him, and I said, you know, it would be so much more fun for me if I could play pool with you, but you get all the balls in, so I never shoot. And so he said, but how is letting you win fun for me?
Right.
And he said, I want you to know that when I'm bowling with you, you are really winning. I'm not letting you win. So you just are better at bowling than I am at pool. So he used to let me play pool by myself, but I would never be able to play a game with him. He was so good. I remember one time we were at the Topsfield Fair, and there's a pool game that if you hit there were 4 balls, and they had to go into 4 different pockets, the 4 corner pockets.
Oh, yeah.
And he thought they meant all at the same time.
Oh.
And so he's walking around and walking around. You could tell the guy's just getting annoyed. And I want the stuffed animal that you could win.
Yeah.
And my father hits them in all at the same time.
Oh,
and
my
the guy
God.
said, you just had to get them in. You didn't have to get them in all at the same time. And he was like, my father was like, yeah, because I thought that was challenging. But he did it. That's how good my father was.
That's awesome.
Don't bet well, my dad's dead, but don't bet against him with pool.
That's
You
awesome.
kick your butt.
So we used to hang out at the bowling alley too. My friend Stephanie and my sister and I, my parents used to be on a bowling league. And what's funny is I remember my mom, so their team name was Hogtown Honeys. So because where we grew up,
Great
Madison
name.
Heights was
Great name.
Hogtown. So they were Hogtown Honeys. And they had the Western red and white checkerboard shirts with the iridescent snaps. So it would just, you can snap it.
You
so
could pull it off like a stripper.
Yes, yes. I was trying to show Chris last night. I have a blue dress like that. It's all lacy and it's kind of like a Jackie O style. And I'm like, look, I have all these buttons in case somebody wants to ravage me. He's like, what do you mean? I don't think I've ever had a dream that somebody ever ravaged me.
What are you talking about?
I'm like,
I always want to be ravaged.
you don't spend your life thinking like, oh, this is a perfect scenario to go down. Like a sexy encounter and let me rip that dress out and boom. And I'm like, and nothing gets hurt in the making of it.
Right.
You don't lose buttons. You don't rip the
The dress isn't ruined for the rest of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because in all those scenarios, you're like, oh, I don't
So your
really want
mom
to ruin
was
my dress.
ripping off the shirt at the end of the thing when she was, but she had a tank top underneath.
And she used to wear like these cowboy boots. I actually have her boots. But we used to hang out there on Friday nights and thought that was cool. Like we always would play games. Like we never, every once in a while they would give us a lane, but it was league night. So that like maybe 1 or 2 lanes, but that was always full. So we would run around and cause trouble and always beg for food and
Yeah.
play hide and seek and hang out in the bathroom like we're the cool girls. And so that was my memory of bowling
Yeah.
growing up. And then when my kids were young, we used to play all the time. And I'm like, I actually don't think that I've bowled in a bowling alley since. I don't think I've bowled because every time the kids would play, we always had the bumpers up. So I don't think I've bowled without
Real
the
bowling.
bump. Yeah.
In a while. A hot minute.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to see.
You get there at 6 and start practicing.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
you don't even have to handicap yourself. Maybe
Well,
we'll see how that goes.
Logan was telling us that there's some people, they take this really seriously. Like these guys, like they open the lanes up at like 2:00 and it's like really cheap or something. They can go and practice like starting at 2. I'm like, ooh, that's 4 hours. Like
That's probably enough bowling.
Some people are in there like,
4 hours is a lot of bowling.
I think it's good for a while. I think it's good for a while. I don't know how many frames we roll. I don't bowl. I don't even know.
So big balls, my specialty was little balls. I'm not as good at big balls, oddly enough, as I am at little balls. Little balls, I'm like pinpoint. Well, I don't know now.
Yeah.
But at one time when I was little, I was fantastic. And big balls is a little heavier because you got to swing your arm and the weight of the ball and your nails and the holes and all kinds of other things. But I am super excited. I might be crashing your bowling league. How many people per?
I don't know.
Okay.
So I have to find out how many are on a team. Because I don't think that...
It was really funny because I was going to ask you guys to do that in 2025. Because I was like, that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, it's something to do in the winter.
Something to do in the winter. And I've always wanted to do it. Like I said, I've always wanted to do it as an adult.
Yeah. So I think it's good. This would be a good thing.
This is really fun. I can't wait to hear more.
Something different.
We will
shake
report
it up.
back.
So that's how we're going to start out the new year. So did you guys have
something fun?
Yes.
You're doing something fun.
Yes. Yes.
So I have a whole... So we have really bad news on New Year's Day. Did you hear about the New Orleans?
No. What happened?
Some guy got in a car and just like ran over people. Like in a terrorist attack at New Orleans. And of course it comes up on my social media. Wow. So I go to ABC News and I'm reading the article. And I wanted to read you something and see if it makes you flip out the way it made me flip out. First of all, obviously it's bad news, right? And so you're reporting on bad news. But this is something that's been going on for a while that I find unbelievably perturbing. So I'm trying to find the exact language.
Well, we didn't turn the TV on yesterday at all.
And you shouldn't have.
Until we watched LA Confidential. We're watching it right now.
Okay. So it said, New Year celebration, federal and local agencies said, we remain concerned about the use of vehicle ramming against high-profile outdoor events. Vehicle ramming has become a reoccurring tactic employed by threat actors.
What?
Marked by a continued interest by lone offenders in targeting crowded pedestrian areas. So why are we changing the language of like attempted murder or actual murder to threat actor? Actor is the wrong word.
Right.
Actor
are you getting paid to threaten people? Because that's how I see a threat actor. Are you getting paid for this?
No, I see a threat actor as in a movie or in a play. I see this as real life violence.
Yeah.
And this is, I would call that, if you don't want to use the word terrorist, you can at least call it murderer. Because he murdered at least 15 people, and there's dozens in the hospital.
Wow.
So, so this goes to the change of language. So this was maybe 10 years ago. People would go around crowded cities and punch people in the head from the back. And they would knock them. It was called the knock. And the news, ABC, CNN, all those places recorded it as the knockout game.
Jeez.
Which it's not a game. Physical assault is, unless it's in a UFC cage, it's not a game.
Right.
It is violence.
Just hitting random people on the street.
And because people didn't know they were getting attacked, they would fall to the ground and crack the skull open.
Right.
Right? Because, and especially not knowing you're going to get hit, you can't even prepare for it.
Well, you're blindsided.
And so they'd come up from behind you and hit you on the side of the head and the jaw and try to knock you out from the back. And the news was reporting that as a knockout game instead of as violence.
Yeah.
And now this is someone running over in a crowded group of people, a threat actor. So stop with the nonsense language. And this is why I don't listen to ABC, CNN, and all of those things anymore. I just happened to pull up, and that was the first article, and I was trying to read through it.
Jeez.
And to find out what happened. So that's my 2 cents. Words matter.
Yeah, it does.
And that's what I've always believed that. In 2024, it seemed to be even more so.
Yeah.
And 2025, words matter.
Yeah.
Choose your words. And I was thinking, we have a radio show and we're live. And when we first came out, we had the intention that, hey, we're trying to have fun. And we're saying things, but, you know, when you're live and it's not scripted, you can't choose your words as effectively as you would say if you were writing something down.
Yeah. You're under pressure.
You're under pressure to the first word that comes into your head.
Get it right the first time. Yeah. I don't think you want to go down my neurodivergent trail.
Funny trails.
Well, so I was saying, I actually said it something, and it made it clear to me, Chris was asking me something, and he was asking me to describe something, and I said, well, I don't. So I had gone through a verbal process, and I was like trying to find, and I was like, no, that's not the right word. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And, I was just a little waffling back and forth trying to find the right word. And he's like, I don't know why it's so complicated. And I'm like, because I don't think it in words. I think I feel it. And so now I'm trying to, it was a thought, but I think that I don't know how to best say it. I said, I think I feel it. So when you ask me a question, now I'm trying to put the words to the emotion. I'm trying to find the right adjectives to describe something. It's like, well, we talked about this when we had the, what's his name? Bob on the author on.
Oh, yes.
And we've talked about it. When we read a story, we see it as a picture.
It's an image and a feeling.
Yes. It's an image and a feeling. And I think so a lot of times my brain thinks that way. And now you've asked me a question.
Yeah.
I've got to put a word to it instead of like it's almost like it's a knowing.
Yes. And I think that's where articulation comes as a word. How well do you articulate the emotions and the feelings?
Yes. The message that you're trying to convey.
Yes. How well do you do that in words?
Yes.
Because some people do it eloquently and beautifully and almost poetically.
Yes.
And that's when I think of, people that I love listening to as orators. I think of Douglas Murray, who is a writer, but even in his speaking, he's just this giant mind who can articulate very well in words and paint beautiful pictures in language verbally. Jordan Peterson is another great orator. Joe Rogan, the reason why his show became what it became was because he understood in the art of conversation, you have to give people room to articulate their thoughts.
Yes.
And it's not always quick. It's not always easy. And if you argued semantics every time someone said something, you took a word, like a lawyer in a courtroom. You use the word, I saddled up, or I sidled up, or
when you pick
and then
on
you
any
now
word.
pick on that one word, and now we're like, so were you sneaky? Were you whatever? And you're like, no, that's not what I meant. And so he did the opposite of that.
Yeah.
He gave people room to flesh out
what
they, and so that's where the 3-hour podcast came in, but it also where better conversations came in because people were given room and they weren't, which was the opposite of TV and interview on news shows, which
get your point across and move on.
3 minutes. You get 3 minutes to say something that we misinterpreted.
Well, because people's attention span is like, zilch now.
Except that I just turned on an Andrew Huberman podcast. Love him. With Jordan Peterson. It's 3 hours and 41 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'm doing this over 3 days.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to them, to a neurologist, a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
And they have these giant topics. But it's fast. I did an hour and 6 minutes, and it was like 10 o'clock. I'm like, I have to go to bed. But those are another two great people to listen to. And we do have long form now because, but go on, and then I'll tell you something.
No, go ahead.
The other day, John, we were listening to one, and John said, because it was about authors, of course, I'm obsessed with them, right? So he's like, you've read all these books, does it really matter? Like, do you absorb any of this into your life, or is it talking? Because isn't it supposed to be doing? And that has stuck with me since he said it. Because,
well, I think that the more that you flood your body, you flood your brain with the information. So I think that you are taking it in. It's just you don't realize. And actually, this is a great point because we're talking about words. We don't realize how much we're actually taking in. And so my point being, the other day, we were driving down to Massachusetts. I was going to say Saturday, but because of the holidays, I don't know what day is what. So,
yeah, what day of the week it is?
So we're out running some errands. Chris broke his 3-wood, so we're dropping it off at Golf and Ski Warehouse, and we're gonna So we're out running some errands, and I'm sitting at the stoplight, and I look over, and there's this huge. So we're actually listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and is it Duncan Trussell? He's a comedian.
Okay, I haven't heard of
him.
him.
He does. Oh my gosh, Midnight. He's a voiceover. It's Duncan somebody. I will. I think it's Duncan Trussell or something like that. Brilliant human being. But he's also a comedian. Not that those can't exist. So we're listening to him, and they're talking about. They're talking about aliens. They're talking about UFOs. They're talking about the drones that were flying over. But they're talking about a little bit about everything. They're talking about mindset, anything, and we're listening to him. And he's like, "Are you hearing this?" And I said, "Yeah." How my brain interpreted it is that I'm taking it in, and I couldn't tell you verbatim what it is. But when I said to Chris, he's like, "Are you taking this in? Are you understanding it?" And I said, "Yeah." When I'm sitting here, we're sitting at the stoplight, and I'm just observing around me. There's this huge Dodge pickup truck, and it's got bells and whistles. It has its upgrades. It has the big beefy tires. And on the back windshield, the bumper, the sticker of that little kid with the spike hair, and he's peeing on something. Yes. So he's peeing on the words that say electric vehicles. and literally the sticker is
the whole back windshield,
big.
Basically.
It's like the size of a dinner plate, big. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just sitting here and I'm listening to this, and I paused it and I was like, "Do you realize we don't realize how much information we're taking away?" I was telling him about the bumper sticker, and he's like, "Well, what does that mean to you?" And I'm like, this guy has allowed electric vehicles, the thought, it has affected his body so much that he has to go and buy a bumper sticker and or a sticker that goes on the back of his windshield. Like, we're always sending messages. And like, that's the message that you want to spend. Like, you probably have $100,000 in this truck. And that's the message that you want to carry forward. And he's like, so I'm like, that's how I process what they just said. And he's like, damn. He's like, but you're actually listening to what they're saying. And so that's why I'm like, I don't see the words the same way, or I don't filter it the same way. But literally, like, you start looking around and like, that's the message that you want to send. Like, you're peeing on electric vehicles. It's like, how much other stuff do we attach to?
Right.
Like, does that get you triggered?
It's the same thing when they have the families on the
back.
Yes. Or and that's at least not negative, but that's telling you I've got 2 kids and 2 dogs.
Right.
Or a kid, a dog, and a cat.
Right.
Or, and
just follow me home
and abduct me, my children, and my cat. And it's really funny because I do. Oh, I hear a weird voice, a weird thing. Do you hear that in your earphones?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So I think of, first of all, I don't put stuff on my car for the most part, but I do think that we like to do labels. We like labels. And I do find it interesting when I call that the piss on.
Yeah.
Piss on Ford, piss on Chevy.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of Calvin Hobbes, that little character.
Yes.
That's pissing on stuff. And I always wonder, I wouldn't piss on anything, even if I didn't like it. Like, even symbolically. Even on symbolically, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So that's one that I don't resonate with at all. But the "Don't Tread on Me" sticker I resonate with.
Yes.
And it's the same type of thing. But one is force, but it's saying don't. It's a negative.
Right.
Don't tread on me. And that's saying I'm probably a diesel person. I don't like electric vehicles, right? So it's still the negative. It's the opposite of something.
But that's the message that you're going to send out to the world.
Yeah.
And so, like, going back to like what we're talking about is we don't realize how much we're being filtered in. So even reading the stories and reading the books, and I feel like,
listening to the podcast.
Well, I mean, but listening or reading some of Joe Dispenza's books, it's heady. and it shows you all this graphs and the brain waves, and it's like, it's talking about your dopamines, and it's medical, and it's all heady.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really wonder, like I even said to him, I'm listening to the audio, but I need the physical book because I need to see the charts.
Yes,
in the
and I need
graphs.
to sometimes read the same thing 3 or 4 times till I'm
and but
understand
then
it.
when it comes up, I'm like, I don't know where I have that information, but yet when we're in a conversation, the information is there.
Yes.
So that's kind of like what John was
It's
saying.
almost like assimilating it. Are you assimilating all this information into your life?
Yes.
And he is. So I tried to explain it in turn, because he's like, everyone's writing books and just listen to me, and I'm writing more books and more books and more books. And I'm like, I know, but you don't take in that information that way. And also, he keeps his own counsel.
Right.
When he needs to solve a problem, he is not actively soliciting information from other people.
Right.
He knows, and if he doesn't, he's processing in within himself how he's going to handle something.
Yes. Yes.
And it is on occasion that he says to me, he's dealing with something and he can't. He always comes to me for the words.
Yes.
I need to say this better.
Yes.
And he tells me, like, he says something to me in a paragraph, and now he wants to say it in 3 words or
so
a thing.
he's a wordsmith too.
Yes. And so I will, kind of like throw out some words, and he'll be like, no, close. And then we'll kind of get to a word.
Yeah.
And like one of them was prudent, as a response.
Yes, I do remember this.
Yeah. And so, but he keeps his own counsel. He didn't ask me what to do about the scenario or whatever. He doesn't do that with anybody. Where I'm verbally processing my problem out loud.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the difference also male and female. I don't know if women are more verbal processors or not.
Well,
but I was thinking to him, I even said to him, of course, I like hearing various things so I can also have better articulation of because sometimes, and I thought this about Douglas Murray, the reason why I fell in love with Douglas Murray was I couldn't articulate why I don't like crowds. And he wrote The Madness of Crowds.
Mm.
And in that, it formalized in language that a crowd can turn into a mob, and a mob can be angry and violent quickly.
Can switch. Yes.
Right. And it's the just like when you go to a concert, everyone is vibing on that same thing. Music has its own kind of energy. And that's why I remember in the 80s and 90s, was it Guns N' Roses would not come out on time. Because Axl Rose was a head case. I think it was Axl Rose.
I think it was. I think you're right.
And so his crowd, in anticipation of being hyped for this great concert, because they used to throw amazing concerts, they would agitate and start destroying stadiums, destroying clubs. And so their band used to get fined because every time you don't go on, there's like a melee out here.
Yeah.
But in that time period of knowing, hey, because I loved concerts and I would always want to go to a concert, and they could be a concert that is amazing or also a riot in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a vibe person,
well, the
although I didn't
change really quickly.
Yes, and negatively. And same thing in bar fights.
Because
in bars.
But you think about it, you've got, in order to be on that frequency, everybody's humming at a higher pitch.
Yes.
And so it's that excited, like our bodies don't tell the difference between anxious and excited. And so I think that energy can shift so quickly.
And I also think, for me,
emotions are high.
Yeah, emotions are high, and they can be good to bad emotions, really.
Right.
It only takes one person to switch a crowd from good emotions to bad emotions. Yes. There was a book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin Decker, and he articulated what I felt, and then I was able to, every time I wanted to go forward, I could just use his articulation.
Yes.
So sometimes I'm using this information to take feelings and then articulate them better than I would have tried to come up with on my own.
Yeah.
And that's what I said these podcasts are for me sometimes.
And so sometimes, like you just quoted the book, he just said, oh, this was his takeaway. Sometimes that's all we're supposed to have is one takeaway from that whole book or something that you resonate. And I think that the more that you learn to trust yourself,
the better and quicker it is for your life.
Yes, but just trusting the process that the information will be there, or that you were only supposed to receive that message. And sometimes you can't consciously, or you can't sometimes he'll ask me what was my takeaway, and I'm like, now I'm trying to remember the story, and now I'm trying to remember this, and it's more of a feeling that. So then when I'm going to give a piece of advice or something, and all of a sudden somebody's talking about something, hey, I have that information.
You can draw on knowledge.
Oh my gosh, the 4 Agreements said this, or, I read this, or the Little Blue Room showed me this, or this. So I think that we're only supposed to, we just get snippets to be able to take in the whole message can be overwhelming. And if we're consciously trying to think about what we're absorbing versus just allowing.
And I do think another thing about it was I was telling him, because once he asked that question the whole night, I was just throwing out different things. I said, there was a change in the narrative of our country. Everything from gender, political, like there was this overarching, you could feel the shift.
Right.
Now, of course, there's progress and things are going to shift. Of course, me being 50 is different than my mother being 50, different than my grandmother being 50.
Right.
Because the culture is different during that time. But what I didn't like some things that were happening, and I couldn't exactly articulate why. And I told him sometimes it was just hearing other people were like me not liking something too. Because you're like, am I just an antiquated person who's not moving forward about whatever?
Right.
And then you're hearing intelligent people argue both sides. Some of these podcasts are disagreements at the same time. And so you can kind of hear, or it allows me to see something I didn't see in exactly that way, and it helps me move into a new position.
Yes.
Because what happened in COVID specifically was once people took a position, it didn't matter how wrong they were in their position.
Right.
They were taking that to the grave.
Yes. Pride.
And even when information was shown to be different than what they learned, they could not say, I was wrong.
Right.
And in that time, I really, really cemented in so fully, we do not want to be wrong, because our identity of who we are and the fact that we're right and we're moral and we're good is tied up to something that's not even, it's not even permanent.
Right. That's my point about the bumper sticker. You're going to put a sticker on a $100,000 vehicle because it elicited an emotional response to you. So you're open to receive that. And if you could just start being aware of
if all of a sudden, I'm not an electric vehicle person.
I'm allowing an electric vehicle to trigger me to the point. And so that's my point of being it. If you're listening, hey, what things like that bumper sticker am I attaching to, or am I holding on that's unnecessary baggage? It doesn't create peace.
And that's why I think social media, we have not understood fully what social media does, because we are seeing 1,000 more images per hour or whatever than our parents saw in their entire life.
Yes.
So we are being subconsciously influenced in a way that we don't even comprehend because it's happening so rapidly.
Right.
And
look at all the fast food commercials. We were watching Hulu, and it's and I said to Chris, watch. It was 10 o'clock, 10:30. You watch the marketing, the commercials change. It goes from food and family and fun, different little things. And at 10 o'clock, all the prescriptions start coming on. Fast foods come on, all this stuff. And I'm we are influenced on that. Don't tell me that you can't watch. We watch the British baking show, and guess what? Now I want dessert.
Yes. Yes. What's really funny is I took advertising in college. And you're supposed to have a singular message, and it's a call to action.
Yes.
That's all advertising is supposed to be, right? And yes, there is the getting your name out there, brand recognition type. Right. But you're spending a lot of money on that. It's not just only brand recognition.
Right. But your message is Domino's, a commercial at 11 o'clock at night.
Call and get Domino's, you get a free pizza. Yeah. Because that's the message.
Yes.
Right?
Get some points.
So some people get those messages right. But a lot of times I will be watching an ad because we silence the ad.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, based on the image, is this a car commercial?
Yeah.
And John will say, no, it's a commercial for a particular thing or whatever. And I'll go, really? Because that's a terrible message. I'm looking at it as an advertising executive.
Yeah.
Terrible messaging, terrible branding, terrible. Or I remember, because the drug commercials all say, ask your doctor about whatever.
Yes.
And they show people golfing and sitting in hot tubs.
Having a great life.
Yeah, having this great life. What is this ad for? Because if this person has kidney failure.
Yes.
I don't know that they're going to
renal failure, but no, I'm not out golfing.
I'm not out golfing and in the hot tub at night in my bikini.
I got some gout. I ain't doing that.
I ain't doing that with my gout, exactly. But I think of I'm always critical of that because in that advertising, I knew subliminally, because we learned that in movie theaters back in the 30s and 40s, they would put images once half of a tenth of a second in a frame, because your moving image is just a series of still frames.
Yeah.
And they would slice in popcorn movie, and they knew they were subliminally making you buy more popcorn. If they did that in the movie,
it's years ago. Like you couldn't do. Remember when you couldn't show beer. You couldn't show a beer label,
cigarettes,
wine label, a cigarette label, any of those stuff. And then they start paying for advertising. You're paying to have that Pepsi sitting on the desk. You're paying for this. You're paying for that person to wear Nikes. And so you're talking about labels, and they even like Dateline or 2020 did the thing about the golden arches, and like there's messages in everything, and like Arby's,
and even the FedEx logo is an arrow. It is an inverse of what you actually see is the message, and it's to the and then when Hillary Clinton did her campaign, she took the same exact thing and just changed it. And it was like,
so Will Smith did. We just watched a movie about that. Will Smith is like a gambler, like they're hustlers, and he hustles this guy at a football game, but so he's also done his research. So it looks like this little guy he's a habitual bettor. He's got a lot of money. They're in the box and they're betting on a football game, and it looks like he's losing his money, and he's down $1 million or more. And Will Smith is like, okay, I'll tell you what, double or nothing, blah, 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 we'll do this. And his girlfriend is freaking out because she's like, are you kidding me? How could you do this? You've lost everything. You've lost 50 grand all the way up to $1 million now. So he actually wins. So he wins the bet, the final bet, and it's, 2 million, 3 million, whatever. It's a big, big number. So afterwards, he's telling her how he did it, and he sunk up, like he said, he told the guy, pick any guy on the field. So the guy picks number 55. He's overweight. But anyway, what Will Smith has done days before, he has flooded that guy's vision with 55. Subconsciously here, subconsciously there. They've strategically placed it here, there, everywhere, and all these things that he's done. That's marketing. That's advertising. It's subliminal messaging and putting it in. So he played his odds of knowing, like, I've flooded this guy's brain with this number 55 for so many days without being in his face about it. And I'm like, that's what TV does. That's what news does. That's what everything does. That's what pissing on electric vehicles is doing. And I'm like, talking about New Year, we've talked many, many times about what can we pick up? We have to in order to pick up something new, we have to lay something down. And I'm just encouraging everybody to think about things like that in my life. What am I emotionally attaching to that I don't need to? Dude, you do not need to attach yourself to electric vehicles. Who freaking cares at the end of the day?
Yeah, you're by spending $100,000 on this diesel vehicle, you are stating what you're doing. We see you driving a diesel vehicle. Right. We
go for the mic drop. Go for the mic drop, and not the, I gotta bleed it all over everybody. Mm-hmm. But I'm just thinking about how much of those things like that. So I'm looking at it, and I'm listening to the podcast, and I'm like, dude, he's allowing this to steal his peace. He's gonna put an angry message on his. And at the end of the day, do you really think anybody else cares? Mm-hmm. I hope that guy is not listening now, but
he's like, hey, that was me. We love your diesel, don't you worry.
Yes, we do love the diesel, but dude, don't mark it up.
And I think of how people get mad at me when I say I love a diesel, and it's because I drive a diesel, but I drive it as a work truck, and it's a towing vehicle.
Yes, and plowing.
And You know why we don't plow in electric vehicles? I'll tell you why. It wouldn't work.
Why is there on the side of the road?
Why is there no plow vehicle that's an electrical vehicle? And it's
sorry, we couldn't plow today. We're charging.
Yeah, we're charging. We've been out for 54 hours. I've talked about that storm because I was out for 54 hours straight. My truck was on for 54 hours straight.
Yeah.
When you see these huge vehicles putting up bridges and whatever, I don't know why they're not electric vehicles, but I surmise
right.
that there's some mechanic that they haven't fixed yet. Now, when Elon Musk is putting rockets out into space and doing all of his things, and he is in charge of that company, 20 years from now, they will fix whatever that flaw is.
I know, I was going to say, like, I have a bad joke.
Okay.
I mean, the guy in New Orleans that killed everybody was an electric vehicle because a lot of times you can't hear them coming.
I think it was an electric vehicle.
A guy, I was walking through the...
I think that's not even a joke. I think that he wasn't an electric vehicle.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, like, if you're going to sneak attack somebody, like, I can't tell you. Number one, I hate on Amherst Street, I hate that Target parking lot because I think, gosh, that's a bold statement. But I think anybody that flies through a parking lot is a freaking moron. There's no reason for you to like speed through a parking lot, especially it's such a busy intersection and it's narrow. They didn't leave enough space for people to turning out of the aisle, and there's so many people crossing. It's like it's such a poor design. But literally, I was walking and so I was walking and I'm looking. I'm not on my phone or anything. This guy starts backing out. I never even heard him. Scared the crap out of me.
Yes.
And I'm like, how many people get hit?
Right, because you don't hear
electric
the
vehicle. So I mean, it was kind of tasteless joke, but it does bring up a good point.
And it's actually a good point because I believe it was an electric truck.
Yeah. God.
So at least ABC reported that it was. I don't know how accurate or enough information was given about that. But that does make a lot of sense because, you can't hear those coming.
You can't.
And yeah, that is pretty interesting, actually, that you brought that up as a point. Because I'm like, why would they, in ABC, I was like, why did you bother putting that detail in? And I think it was for that reason. At the time, it didn't register because they're silent.
Yeah, it literally just happened to me. And I was like, I don't, it's one of the things, like, I don't even want to shop at Target because of it.
Yeah. So I think every single parking lot is a civil engineering nightmare. And I always want it because I'm driving around. And I'm always like, who designed this and who approved it? I want to punch both of them in the face. Because everyone's swearing at everyone. It's like, it's not my fault that the aisle is not big enough for me.
Right.
As a vehicle. I'm a vehicle.
Right.
I should be able to. The entire parking lot should be, once you give a design.
And somebody crowds you.
Yeah, the guy who puts the stamp on it has to drive around
right.
in the biggest vehicle that is available for sale.
Right.
And see, can I navigate this parking lot evenly? If the answer is no, that's not a good parking design.
Or even park like three. Like you can't. I have a small car, but like when you're trying to turn out onto the aisle, like, and what I love is people will pull forward to get your spot, or they're going to turn in, like they're going to turn into the aisle, but now you're trying to turn out and they've blocked you and they like just sit there like, move. I can't move. No, you need to back up.
Don't you think that's the same thing about trains? People, you have to let the people that are on the train off to make room.
Yes,
but the people that get on the platform are trying to bum rush the inside of the train. It's like, if you let us get out, you'll have so much more room in here. It's like salmon.
Yes.
Just spawning upstream against, it's like, let the current come out, and you can have all of the space in the world.
I gotta go get my seat. Everybody's so worried. I gotta go get my seat.
And I think to myself, thank God I don't have you in my life.
I know.
On a regular basis.
Well, another driving pet peeve is, in New Hampshire is, I mean, we have a lot of great drivers. But one of my pet peeves is when you're pulling out of a road and the people that are on the main road are going to turn into your road. So they're going to make a left. And they will stop and they want you to go forward so they can short turn, so they can cut the curve. Like, dude, pull up. Do you know how many, like, that's such an accident waiting to happen. But it's like, pull forward and just keep moving. You're not doing me a favor.
Right.
And I'm like, because a lot of times they still want to cut the curve. I'm like, it takes you not even a second to go like one tire rotation further than when you're going.
I joke that if everyone drove a standard, we'd all be better drivers.
Yes,
because
I agree.
You would know, like, I'm not stopping and starting again.
Right.
There's so much more manual physicality to driving a standard that when you drive a standard,
a lot, yes.
You have to you don't want to inch up every 3 feet. You're either going or I'm not going.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of
Yeah.
that happens that
Yeah.
doesn't happen when you're kind of rolling around in a car. That's
Yeah.
a standard. That's not a standard. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of interesting too. Yeah, but there's so much information coming at us, and I don't know if we're critically thinking about it all.
Well, that's why I think you need to pause.
So
Pausing to filter.
Yes, but how do you pause when there's so much rapidly happening? It's almost overwhelming, and I think that is. But if you can pop up when you're looking at advertising or as you're looking at information, and really giving yourself the ability to filter out stuff that you don't want to come to you. And,
Right.
And I, back in 2006, I said to my spouse, I'm not a New Year's resolution person. We talked about this.
Yes.
And it was interesting. They said on the news, don't do New Year's resolutions. Oh, a psychologist came out and said, you feel bad about yourself because you never keep them.
Right.
But I digress. I said, I'm going to stop watching cable television in the New Year. I just find it agitating. I don't enjoy myself. And we actually canceled our service, and we had no cable television from 2007 to 2017. So we had a VCR, we had YouTube, and we had some, and then in 17 we got like Netflix and that kind of things. But we really limited the amount of advertisements that were coming to us. And I also limited the amount of news, because news by definition is negative.
Yes.
And stop telling me about horrible stuff that's happening everywhere that I have no control over and I have no solution for. And neither do you. And that's the thing. These aren't solutions.
But I just said you could change the world if you change the way news is delivered. If you started giving more of the feel good, you like deliver the catastrophic. Like look at the hurricane that just, everybody is like focusing on the trauma, but yet we know some amazing people that were doing some amazing things with rescue and rebuilding and all these different things. Do the feel good stories. You start delivering the news starting with more feel good stories. Eventually that's going to take over. But again, the news, they have to get their ratings. They want to be number one, so they're going to come in with the edge, because ABC wants to beat NBC and CNN and Fox, and they're all jockeying for a position. So if I can give you the most drama, I don't care about your mental health. I'm trying to get you the most drama, the wow factor, so that you will watch my show.
You know what's really interesting?
And it's so negative. But you start doing the feel good and the humanity and the good things, and eventually you start changing the temperature.
And I said, the reason why I like these podcasts, they're long form, so I get the entire context of what people are saying.
Yes.
So people can lie to me less. I'm hearing the whole thing.
Yes.
There was a story.
And you're hearing different vantage points, too. You're not just hearing one person's opinion or the way that they process it or they received it.
There was a podcast from not Neil Gaiman. I will think of his name in a second. He is a writer for Rolling Stone magazine. Neil Brennan. No, that's a comedian. I've got so many Neils in my head. Anyways, I will think of it. To Live and Die in L.A. is the name of the podcast. And what happened was his friend is a private eye. In California, if you go missing, the chances of you being found of like dead or alive is in the thousands.
Wow.
And so this family was getting nowhere with the authorities, so they hired a private investigator. And the private investigator said, I need to talk to a bunch of people. You interview people. People always want to talk to you. You have the skill that I'm not going to have as a private eye as well as you. Will you come with me to ask some questions?
Wow.
Super smart.
Yeah.
Super smart. Well, then he got sucked into the story and had to be through it till the end.
I got to see it to the end.
And then what he found in there, and it has stuck with me. I've probably listened to that podcast in 2017 or 2018. It still sticks with me. Every single news story. They reported something inaccurately. He did the research, found the camera footage, and found it to be false, and gave the information out as false. But because the initial thing was wrong, every single news story from ABC to CNN, they all reported the inaccurate information, even though there was follow-up proof in a very short period of time. It wasn't like they reported Saturday.
Well, the Boston Marathon bombing and Sandy Hook, they both reported it wrong. At one time, it was the brother, like Sandy Hook was it was the brother, and I think in the bombing, it was had thought it was the brother. They don't have to fact check anymore. They just put something out to beat the line.
And I think that is doing everyone a disservice.
And then everybody starts going in that direction.
Because you're giving wrong information that people are then taking as fact because they heard it once.
Right.
Because it's hard to change your mind after you've heard that kind of thing. But if we know it, we can try to keep it in the back of our minds as we're hearing stuff. Like when I looked up that information yesterday, because the person brought it up, actually, and it was a really great post. There's this guy. His name is Zeb. He is like a DW department, highway department in the city of Boston. And he does these little sweet videos, right, of his life out doing his thing. Yeah. And he shows cleaning up parks and he shows his job. But he also, people mail him, he wears ugly sweaters to church, right? So people mail him sweaters and he opens up packages and then he goes to nursing homes. Cool. And he just has I actually invited him on the radio, and he never responded to the direct message, but I find him funny. But he talks about how we need more God in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to get him on.
And he said, even if you're not, that's not the word you used to, or you think you don't believe, we have evil. Every one of us has evil inside of us.
Yes.
And we need to work on the good, work on God, going towards the direction. And that's when I was like, oh, what happened already? The first of the year, I didn't even get out of the 10 minutes into the new year. And, you're reading about this kind of stuff happening. And, but I wanted to just loosely get a little bit of the story. And then I saw that threat actor and I had to shut it down because I thought, this is the problem, because you're changing the language. And I always go back to World War II. I always go back to when people say, how does this happen? Systematically over a period of time, and you start with the children. And you educate them just a little bit differently. You use a little bit different language. You use a little bit different word. And then you have a whole generation thinks a whole completely different set of ideas than the society before it.
Yes.
That you can kind of convince them of anything. And then we have the Holocaust.
But but actually even teaching children, or even starting today and teaching your adult children, yourself, everybody, does this serve me?
Yeah. And how accurate is this information? And how does this make me feel? And we can get into this we're going to go to the top of the hour in a minute. But what I was thinking is, and we'll talk about this in the second one, let's talk about entanglement.
Yes.
Because I don't have a pen to write anything down. I don't know how the studio is pen-free at the moment.
I see one over there. But yeah, so I would like to talk about words. And I like.
Do you have your word for 2025?
I have actually 3 words for 2025.
That's funny. I have 3 too.
But it kind of ties into what we're talking about today. It's the same message. It's like, what are we leaving behind, and does this serve me? Does this information serve me? And thinking about what bumper stickers can I get rid of? What can I lay down that gives me more peace? Because I'm excited to talk about one of my words.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your words.
Or actually all of my words, really. But
because I said in the show last year that my word was going to be gamify, and I'll tell you why I changed my word too.
Right, so listen to this. We've been talking about, was it complicit in our...
Yes.
I said complicit in our misery.
Yes, but stay tuned.
Yes.
You're listening to Lisa and Robyn on the mic. We will be back after this short announcement break. Nice.